Welcome to our module on cultural weed management. In our previous module, we gave an introduction to weed biology. Now we will focus on how to manage weeds.
This module was authored by Christine Moncada, Jeff Gonsolis, Constance Carlson, and Craig Schaefer of the University of Minnesota in 2017 and updated in 2026. Narrated by Constance Carlson, with additional narration generated using the AI voice of Hannah from ElevenLabs.
There are two main categories of weed management, cultural and mechanical. In this module, we will focus on cultural weed management. We will discuss mechanical weed control methods in our next module. So what exactly does cultural weed management mean? It refers to the production practice decisions a farmer can make to inhibit weeds. Cultural weed management most often is focused on preventing weeds. Examples of ways farmers can do this include crop rotation and variety selection, delayed planting, and planting rate. A diverse rotation is a strong tool in managing weeds. Different crops have different planting dates and growth habits that inhibit certain weeds. So, by changing things up, weeds have a harder time adapting. Adding perennials, small grains, and cover crops are some of the ways to diversify corn and soybean rotation and set back weeds. Please watch our modules entitled Rotation and Cover Crops for more information on those topics. Growing crops with similar production practices will lead to weeds adapted to those practices. Including small grains in rotation is beneficial to a row crop production system because small grains have different planting and harvesting dates that interfere with early emerging weeds. Small grains require narrower row spacing, which increases their competitive impact on later emerging weeds. Another benefit is they can be underseeded with red clover or alfalfa to provide weed suppression after the grain is harvested. Alfalfa is another important tool for managing annual weeds and can be helpful in reducing Canada thistle. As a perennial, alfalfa provides continuous soil coverage for up to 3 years. Weeds are suppressed by continuous soil cover. The repeated harvesting of alfalfa depletes the energy reserves of weeds and can prevent them from setting seed. A recent study in Minnesota examined the effect of rotation on giant ragweed seed emergence. They discovered lower levels of weed seed emergence in wheat and alfalfa as compared to corn and soybean. These results show that rotations with wheat and alfalfa are less favorable to giant ragweed emergence and contribute to seed bank depletion. The seed bank depletion is likely due to factors such as weed seed predation or degradation. Winter cover crops can be a tool to manage weeds as well as protect soils. The growth of a winter cover crop such as winter rye or hairy vetch can suppress fall and very early spring weeds. The residue of winter rye in particular has been found to be allelopathic, which means it contains chemicals that can impede the germination of some small seeded weeds. Crop varieties can vary in how adapted they are to organic systems. Take a look at this variety trial of organic dry beans, where each row is a different variety. Their growth habits are obviously different. The variety in the center doesn't have the vigorous growth of some of the others, and has not developed much of a canopy in comparison to the others. Some crop varieties may have greater competitiveness because they emerge faster, grow faster, close their canopies faster, or simply just have a better general tolerance to weeds. Some of this information on traits can be obtained from seed companies or variety trials, but in most cases, it is best to try out varieties or hybrids yourself to see if they perform competitively under your conditions. In Minnesota, organic producers often plant corn and soybean later than conventional growers. This is called delayed planting, and it allows time before the crop is planted for more weeds to germinate. They then can be killed with mechanical weed control operations to reduce populations of early emerging weeds. Later planting means the soils are warmer, so corn and soybean will emerge more quickly. Delayed planting is not an option for early planted cool season crops. Lamb's quarters is an example of an early emerging weed that may be controlled by delayed planting. Please note that later emerging weeds such as water hemp, or ones with prolonged emergence times such as velvet leaf, will not be controlled with delayed planting. While crop seed can catch up in its growth somewhat when planted in warmer soils, one drawback of delayed planting is the potential for reduced yields. Delayed planting is never recommended for cool season crops, such as small grains, due to reduced yields and other reasons. This graph shows that corn in much of Minnesota should be planted before May 10th for maximum yields. Often, organic producers will decide that even though delayed planting might result in slightly lower yields, the weed management benefits outweigh the yield hit. Not only does the optimum planting rate lead to optimum yields, it can give crops a competitive edge against weeds. Planting rate is especially critical for organic producers because mechanical weed control operations can reduce plant populations. For example, rotary hoeing can lead to a 10% reduction in crop stand. Make sure to compensate for mechanical weed control casualties of your crop by increasing planting rate. One experienced organic farmer says to consider this additional seed cost to be equivalent to the cost of herbicide that you will no longer need as an organic producer. In Minnesota, for example, most producers should have a final plant population for corn between 32,000 and 34,000 plants per acre. Consult other modules in this series or local extension publications for planting rate and population recommendations for crops in your area. We will now discuss the most important aspect of cultural weed management, prevention. As the old saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. It is always better to prevent new weed problems. Plant seed that is free of weeds. Manage weeds in ditches, buffer strips, and conservation reserve program land. If you notice a new weed invasion, take extra steps to prevent long-term establishment. To the best of your abilities, do not let newly introduced weed species go to seed. Controlling weeds when they are young keeps them from producing seed. Why is it so important to prevent weeds from going to seed? In the weed biology module, we introduced the concept of the weed seed banks. Even if you have had several years of good weed control and have been successful in lowering the number of weed seeds in the bank, it only takes 1 year of poor weed control and allowing weed to go to seed to replenish the weed seed bank. Manure can be a source of weeds. Many weed seeds pass through livestock digestive systems intact. Most significantly to farmers, manure can introduce new weed species. The level of weed risk in manure depends on how manure was stored, livestock species, type of feed, and which weed seeds are consumed by the livestock. The fresher the manure is, the greater number of viable weed seeds there will be. As a general rule, weed seeds in hogs and cattle manure has the highest survival rates. If there is a manure source more likely to be weedy, put that on a conventional field instead. Scouting is especially important for transitioning farmers. You will need to learn which weed species you have and note patterns in weed emergence to guide future mechanical weed operations. It is critical to stay ahead of weeds and avoid playing catch-up. As part of your record keeping, make maps of weed locations and record how effective your operations are. One suggestion for a schedule to scout for weeds is 3 times a year. The most critical time to look for weeds is when they are most likely to be emerging, which would be in the early spring, early summer, and early fall. By practicing the cultural weed management methods we have discussed in this module, we hope you will impact weeds and maintain good yields. Please watch the next module in our series, Mechanical Weed Management, for more ways to manage weeds. Weeds are one of the biggest concerns in organic farming, so it is best to use all the tools you have. Thank you for watching our Cultural Weed Management module.
This project is supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, Organic Transitions Program under Award Number 2013-5, 1106-2-1005. This project is supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Agricultural Marketing Service, National Organic Program under the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, TOPP, in the Midwest region. Any opinions, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this publication are those of the authors and should not be construed to represent any official USDA or U.S. government determination or policy. The University of Minnesota shall provide equal access to and opportunity in its programs, facilities, and employment without regard to race, color, creed, religion, national origin, gender, age, marital status, familial status, disability, public assistance status, membership or activity in a local commission created for the purpose of dealing with discrimination, veteran status, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. For more information about this project, please see organicag.umn.edu, copyright 2026, Regents of the University of Minnesota. All rights reserved.